Hello students, this is Dr. Redman. In this video, we're going to talk about writing for a solo voice. So when you are writing for singers, a really important thing to think about and be aware of is their range and also, more importantly, their tessitura. So when we're talking about range, we can talk about their total range, which is all of the different pitches from low to high that they could possibly physically produce. But we probably want to focus more on what is their usable range or what range they're comfortable singing in a public performance. For example, if I was warming up as a singer, I vocalize a lot higher uh, pitches than what I would actually want to sing in public. I could probably get a B flat or a B above the staff, but in public, I really would not want to go above an F. um, and the same is true of most singers. Um, so within the total range of sounds someone can make, there will be a smaller range that is what they are comfortable using in public. Then within that public range, you have the tessitura. And the tessitura means the comfortable range. This is where the singer wants to spend most of their time. It's where they sound best, it's where it's most natural to produce the sounds. Um, they will have higher and lower pitches, but you want to save those higher and lower pitches, those extreme notes, for special moments. Um, in addition to being potentially tiring for the singer, um, often in the extremes of the range, text is less clear. The tessitura tends to be closer to speaking range, and is where you're going to get the words across most clearly. So when you are looking at setting text in different parts of the vocal range or vocal tessitura, um, some vowels are easier to sing in different areas of the voice. Um, this varies a little bit from voice type, but also a little bit from singer to singer. But often open vowels will be easier to sing in different areas, whereas closed vowels might be harder to sing in certain places and easier to sing in different ranges. Um, and the singer will know that they need to modify their vowels in certain parts of their range in order to sing in a healthy way and to sing in a way that's going to let them produce a good sound. Um, so when you're working with singers, you want to sort of familiarize yourself with that so that you can keep that in mind when you are um, figuring out what notes to set on certain words. In addition to the tessitura and how to use the acceptable notes outside of the tessitura, you also want to think about the singer's passaggio. Everyone has different regions of the voice: the chest, the mix or possibly middle voice, and then the head voice. Now, whenever you sing, the sound is obviously coming out of your vocal cords, with the air coming up from your lungs through the vocal cords and causing them to vibrate. But depending on how high or low the pitches are, the sound is going to resonate in different places. For your lower notes, you'll have the chest voice, and the sound will resonate more from your uh, chest. The head voice is going to be sort of the higher notes, which you'll feel more in your face. And then the mix is going to sort of combine the two in different amounts depending on how high or low the notes are. And these different places where the sound resonates lead to different colors in the voice. The passaggio, which is also known as the break or bridge or transition, is the area where the singer moves from one part of the voice to another. And singers usually have a primary passaggio, typically from where you're going between the mix into full head voice, and then also a secondary passaggio um, where you're going from chest into mix. And these different passaggio areas are going to require special handling from the singer. And so, as a composer, you want to also take that into account when you are writing vocal music. Um, Typically, the primary passaggio is going to require a little more attention than the secondary passaggio, but it's good to be aware of both. And so you want to think about how to approach these notes. A lot of singers prefer stepwise approaches, um, going into the notes and also sometimes going out of the passaggio notes. Um, and definitely you want to make a point not to hang out in the passaggio areas. Um, it can get very tiring for a singer to have to spend a lot of time in the passaggio or to have to keep coming back to it a lot. So generally, you want to try to move in and out of it relatively quickly. As you're probably aware, there's different voice types. And the classifications of voice types are more about tessitura and color and weight in the voice than they are actually about total range or usable range. Um, and the voice types, uh, their classifications differ slightly depending on if you're talking about solo voices versus choral voices. So the main solo voice types um, are soprano, mezzo soprano, contralto, tenor, baritone, and bass from high to low. Um, there's a much more detailed system of classifications called the Fach system. It's a German system, and it gets into different subcategories within those main types. So you'll have different types of sopranos, different types of mezzo sopranos, and so forth, based on how quickly their voice can move, um, how strong or heavy their voice is, um, based on what type of music or roles are typically written for those voice types, and so forth. Choral voice types, it's a little simpler. Generally, we have the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, or sometimes the tenor and the bass might be replaced by baritone. One thing to be aware of with singers is that um, singers are going to have some vibrato to their sound. And vibrato is where there's slight changes in the pitch or the intonation of a note. Um, and it's important to recognize that vibrato is a natural part of healthy, relaxed singing. It is not something to be avoided. um, it can be controlled for expressive purposes. And very often, a singer will do this as part of their interpretation of a piece of music. Composers can write in indications if they're seeking some kind of a special effect, like if they want to increase the vibrato over the course of a note, or sometimes as an extended technique, composers will ask for singers to sing without vibrato, which is known as senza vibrato. But senza vibrato uh, can require some technical considerations for the singer. So that's something that you want to treat like an extended technique and ask the singer if they are comfortable with that. And if they are, then go ahead and use it within whatever guidelines they give you. But know that some singers might not be comfortable with that, and if they are comfortable, they might ask that you only do it in certain parts of the voice, or that you only do it for a short period of time, and so forth. uh, Different styles of music have different approaches to how they incorporate vibrato. So, operatic singing um, tends to use more vibrato, particularly if it's grand or very large opera. Um, Choral music tends to use a little less vibrato. So different styles of music are going to incorporate vibrato in different ways. Now, when you are writing for a specific singer, there's some helpful questions you might want to ask them. First, you want to check in about tessitura and range. So find out what is their tessitura or comfortable range. And that's again where you want to spend most of the time. You can also ask how high or low it's okay to go. But when you do that, make sure that you also ask how the singer wants to approach those notes. Some like to go by step, some are fine with leaping, some prefer leaping. Um, you should also ask if there's any guidelines they have on how you should use those notes. Certain notes are going to come out naturally louder or softer, and so there's limitations on what you can write in terms of volume. Also, those extreme notes can be tiring, so they might not want to have more than a certain number of those notes, or may not want to stay on those notes for a very long time. And they may also need to modify the vowels um, depending on what the notes are. And at a certain point, if you go too extreme in your notes, the clarity of the text might get lost completely. So it's good to check in and be aware. If you do use those extreme notes, how does that affect what you can write? Also, check in about passaggio. What are the passaggio notes? How does the singer prefer to move in and out of those areas? Whenever you're working with with a performer, whether it's a singer or an instrumentalist, it's good to check in about their personal preferences. So you might ask them what they like to do or not like to do as a singer. You might also ask what makes them unique. They may have certain things that they do really well, um, things that they think are their strong suits that you might like to highlight in your piece to really showcase their uh, their unique personality and their unique skill set. And if you're interested in extended techniques, you want to ask them about that. Again, not all performers are comfortable with that, so you should ask if they are willing to do extended techniques, and if so, which ones. And for the ones that are okay, find out if there's any certain ground rules that you should follow when you're using them. And lastly, it's always a great idea to ask what pieces fit their voice really well and why. So that way you can look at the pieces and you also know what it is they think about the music really suits them well, because that'll tell you a lot about how to write successfully for their voice.